Thank you all so much for being here tonight. My name is Dr. Ignacio Lopez. I'm the interim president here at Harold Washington College. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the first Gubernatorial Candidate Forum of 2018, which elevates the perspectives of two communities integral to the success of our state, the City Colleges of Chicago students and Latinx residents. The City Colleges of Chicago is one of the nation's largest community college districts and the largest system in Illinois. We prepare approximately 80,000 students each year to further their higher education, to start their careers, and to contribute to our state and local communities. We are honored to have so many great guests here tonight. I would be remiss if I did not have a special shout out and welcome to our Chancellor of the City Colleges of Chicago, Chancellor Juan Salgado. Thank you for being here. And we continue to thank the Chancellor for his commitment to our students and the opportunities that he's given us and our organizations like SGA to come together like we are today. Today you see a strong showing from our student body. This is the future of Illinois. Our students work hard, often balancing multiple jobs, school, and supporting their families. They are diverse. Nearly 85% of our students are minority students. Majority of our minority students here at Harold Washington College are Latino students or Latinx students. Our students care about the gubernatorial race because they know that the governor has profound impact on their ability to attend school, to earn a living, and create a future in our state. I'd like to extend a warm welcome and thank you to all the candidates who will join us tonight, who recognize how important it is to address the needs of the communities represented here. But first, before we go on, I'm pleased to introduce to you Harold Washington's Student Government Association President, Samer Hassan, who will share why the Harold Washington students organized this event for you tonight. Please welcome Samer.
Thank you, President Lopez. Hello, everyone. Chicago, like the United States, stands at such a pivotal point in human history that our decisions in the present day will have ramifications for years to come. Local elections is where real change takes place. To everyone in this room, I ask you now, do you want to be part of that change?
Yes. Yes.
Look around you. Look around this room and awe at its diversity. Look what we can accomplish when we work together. I'm Samer Hassan, President of Student Government Association here at Harold Washington College, and together, the SGA, with Latino Policy Forum and Young Invincibles, have brought you the potential governor of Illinois. Now is the time to ask hard questions and look for a specific candidate that aligns with your views or challenges them. Make your vote count. To you, the students in this room and afar, I want you to remember something. Our generation is powerful, is educated, and we are finding our voices on this world stage. Our generation will stand up for the future and change this world for the better, and it starts now. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Sylvia Puente, Executive Director of Latino Policy Forum. Thank you.
Aspiring politician here. What do you guys think? Well, I will tell you, it's really beautiful and wonderful to be in the room with so many of you and with so many young students that are here, because truly the future really is however you choose to shape it and however it is that we collectively make a difference. So I'm the Executive Director of the Latino Policy Forum, and we are so pleased to be with you all here today. Dr. Lopez, Samir, my good friend, Chancellor Salgado, and the Latino Policy Forum are so pleased to have sponsored this event. The people in this room, you, are as students who are primarily the audience, and members of the Latino community who are also members of our audience, have the potential to decide the future for the state of Illinois. Did you know that we represent 10% as a Latino community, 10% of the electorate? That can make a difference in this next governor's election. And that millennials are 40% of Latino voters. So how many of you in this room are Latino millennials? Raise your hand. You can make the difference in this next election because you are the biggest cohort of Latino voters. So my challenge to each of you here today is to listen carefully and then vote for the candidate that you think will be the best leader for Illinois. There is so much at stake. As examples, the future of financial aid for all of you and the critically needed human services will be determined by the next governor. So I'd like to thank all of those that have been involved in this event. They're all on your program. There's a lot of you. Raise your hands so we can thank you. All of those from the forum staff, from SGA, from Herald Washington. A lot of them are out there, but there's been a lot of people that has taken to put this event together. So we thank you. Want to thank the translators who are over here in the corner. We want to make sure that this event was accessible to all. So if you hear a little bit of background noise, it's our translators. And here are all the social media channels up here, and they're in your program. Please make this a tweet storm, or however it is you say it, so that we can make sure that we're getting a lot of traction with what you hear tonight. And we also want to thank the Reva and David Logan Foundation, because without their financial support, we would not be able to have this event, at least on behalf of the Latino Policy Forum. We want to thank all the candidates and their staff who said yes to being here, and you'll get to hear from them. And the six of the candidates said yes. 2 of them, unfortunately, couldn't accept our invitation. We want to thank Enrique Rodriguez, who's going to be our fantastic MC for the evening. How many of you have seen him on the news, on Univision? Enrique is an award-winning journalist, a 7-time Emmy winner. He's covered local, state, and national elections, and he loves investing his time with the community. So we're so pleased that he's going to have as good a time tonight as we are.
Are we excited? Yes. I think so. Thank you for the invitation, Sylvia, and the Latino Policy Forum. Thank you to Herald Washington for hosting this wonderful event. I'm excited. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really thrilled that we're going to have the opportunity to hear from all the 6 Democratic candidates. Sylvia already stated that unfortunately the 2 Republican candidates were not able to accept our invitation, but it's fine. We have an incredible representation from Herald Washington. Give it up for Herald Washington, everybody. It's phenomenal. You know, I'm so used to doing a lot of forums and debates, and we never see students, you know, the people that really matter, right? So I'm very happy that you're here. I see a lot of familiar faces as well, a lot of Latino community leaders. I know this election in particular will be very important for you because of the budget crisis that the state has been facing for a while now, right? And we know the effect that that has in our community, so I know that's very, very important. I want to thank all the production personnel that is here, making this event, making sure that more people are reached with this event. CAN TV is doing a live streaming. Thank you guys from CAN TV for your help and your cooperation. If you have any family member or friend who is not here today, please send them a text. Let them know that they can log into cantv.org so they can see this event, okay? Let me explain to you really quickly how this is going to work. The candidates will be coming in one at a time. They will have 5 minutes to talk a little bit about themselves, opening statements, and then we're going to have students and members of the Illinois Latino Agenda asking questions. Can the students stand up? I know you're here at the very front. Let's give the students a round of applause, everybody. Thank you, guys. I spent a couple of minutes with you before this event, and I was very pleased to hear about your dreams and your goals. And I read all your questions. Phenomenal job. Thank you. Kudos to you all. Okay? And do we have all the members of the Illinois Latino Agenda that will be asking questions? If you can stand up at the same time, so everybody knows who you are. Thank you so much. So there will be opening statements, 5 minutes, then there will be 5 questions, 1 minute each. The candidates will have a minute to respond, okay? And we want to be respectful to all the candidates, so the same questions will be asked to everybody, but we will have different individuals asking the questions. Very, very important. Now, the candidates will have at the end 1 minute to give a closing statement. We want to give them an opportunity to do so. And then we'll repeat the same procedure. Like Sylvia mentioned, we want to make this a Twitter war, right? Can we call it a Twitter war? Very successful Twitter war. The hashtags, you can see them, CCC Together, CCC Votes, and hashtag Forum Impacto. Jose will be coming in at the middle of this event to create some more engagement. And we have a Twitter feed, very important, a Twitter feed that we'll be able to use in between candidates. Right in front of me at the very end, I want to acknowledge Rocio and Anthony. They are our timekeepers. Can you guys stand up, please? Thank you guys for your help. As you know, the candidates tend to talk a lot sometimes, right? So it's very important that we stay on time. I do know that many or some individuals might need translation, so please know that there is, we have, I think, 2 translators here with us this evening, Roberto and Catalina. Thank you very much, Roberto. Good to see you again. Roberto has worked with us in Univision at various events. So in case anybody needs translation, please go to the reception desk and make sure that you get a headset. Now, you all look like a really nice audience, don't you? Yes? Can we assume that? I think so, right? The reason why I mentioned that, as you can see, there's a lot of cameras. So we're going to ask you to please do not enter or exit in between or in front of the cameras, so we don't interrupt the transmission. And at the same time, we want you to be respectful with the audience here, with the audience watching on cantv.org, and with the candidates. That's very, very important, okay? I'm sure that the Latino Policy Forum doesn't want to be forced to escort anybody out. So, any questions, anybody? No? Are we ready to go? Yes. All right. By the way, a brief bio of each candidate is in your program. The order of the candidates is also in your program, so please check it out if you have a minute. Our first candidate that we're going to be calling to the stage is Senator Daniel Biss from the 9th District, and he's already here. Senator, please welcome. I see that you have a, good to see you again. You have a microphone already? No? Don't worry, I got you. Thank you. There you are. And we're going to ask you, how did you know that was your chair, by the way? Yeah, thank you. All right. For production purposes, that's where we want you to be. Okay, so a couple of things that I want to remind you. I know you've been brief about this. Our beautiful, wonderful, intelligent, smart, our future, the students are here. They're going to be asking questions to you. Same questions for all the candidates. Different individuals will be asking those questions. You have 5 minutes for an opening statement. You have a minute to respond each question. As you can see at the very far, there is a screen with numbers. That's our timekeepers are taking care of that. If I see that you lose track of that, don't worry. I got you, like I said. I'll make sure I'll interrupt you so we can be respectful to all the candidates. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, very well. With that said, 5 minutes for your opening statement. Go for it.
Beautiful. Listen, Enrique, thank you so much. Thank you to the Latino Policy Forum. Thank you to Harold Washington College. I am so much looking forward to this evening, to this conversation. And thank you most of all to the students. You were given a lot of adjectives to live up to, but I'm sure you'll exceed all of those expectations. My name is Daniel Biss. I'm state senator in the 9th District. I live in Evanston with my wife Karen, our 2 children, Elliot and Theodore, who are in 2nd and 4th grade in our neighborhood public school. I'm running for governor of Illinois. And let me tell you, none of this was my plan in life. None of it was my plan. In fact, my expectation was to be spending a lot more of my professional time in a building like this. I used to teach mathematics. My first job was teaching mathematics at the University of Chicago. Didn't plan to use it as a springboard into politics, but I saw a president lying to us. I saw a nation spinning out of control, and I felt like I had to do something about it. I started organizing, grabbing hold of clipboards and knocking on doors, going neighborhood to neighborhood, and I fell in love with this idea that if you could harness the power of people, you could build movements, and movements could create justice. Now, that president was George W. Bush. And we look back at those problems with nostalgia. Now we have a new president who is attacking vulnerable communities, who is attacking immigrants, who is attacking refugees, who is attacking people of color, who is attacking women, who is attacking working people, and we have a much bigger set of problems. In the meantime, I've now been in the legislature for 7 years, and I see growing across this state a profound movement of people who see what is broken about the system that we have now and are ready to come together and fight for justice in a new way. And my God, we have to fight for justice. We have a situation where a few people with more and more money find it easier and easier to collect more and more for themselves, and the rest of us find it harder to get by. We have a system where most families haven't gotten a raise for a long period of time, and where the ability to afford a college education is beyond the grasp of so many. The ability to afford childcare is beyond the grasp of so many of us. We have a system here in Illinois where, let's be honest, we have wonderfully funded schools in a few zip codes, but in many zip codes of the state, children don't have access to appropriately funded schools. And here in Illinois, we have a tax system that was written by the very wealthy for the very wealthy. Illinois is a wonderful place to be a billionaire, but it's a hard place to be a working family. And because of all of this, we find ourselves in a situation where people are leaving, where people are finding it harder to make ends meet, and we find ourselves in a situation, yes, when Donald Trump attacks our communities, when Donald Trump attacks immigrants, when Donald Trump attacks people who it's the moral responsibility of the state of Illinois to stand up for, our state is far too quiet. And so the question facing us in this primary in March of 2018, I believe, is the question of what kind of Democratic Party we want to have in this time of stress, in this time of vicious, racist attacks from our president, in this time of economic inequality and more struggles from working families. Are we going to be a party that says Donald Trump and Bruce Rauner are terrible, and so we're going to put a stop to what they're doing and go back to exactly what we had before and say that was good enough? Or are we instead going to build a truly just society? Are we instead going to build a people's movement that is able to force our state government to act on behalf of working families and the middle class? Are we going to build a movement that creates a world where everybody can attend a community college or a public university? A world where every family has access to child care, a world where every single child, regardless of zip code, has access to a high-quality public education in their neighborhood school? Are we going to finance it with a tax system that acknowledges that the very rich in Illinois have not paid our share and that stopped us from affording a society we want? Or instead, will we just kind of bumble along and hope for the best? Will we fight for justice, or will we tell ourselves why it's too hard to fight for justice? Will we transform our state, or will we continue to repeat the excuses of why it's too politically risky to transform our state? I'm Daniel Biss. I'm running for governor. I'm here to ask you to join me in an effort to transform the state of Illinois.
Perfect timing. Thank you. Thank you. That was the easy part. So now here come the questions. The first question is about higher education. I want to welcome Patricia Rodriguez.
My name is Patricia Rodriguez. I am currently a student at Harold Washington College and participate in SGAs as secretary. I grew up at the heart of Chicago, Pilsen, and to the local public school with my cousins. And on going into high school, some of us were fortunate enough to go to high-quality Catholic schools. While we decided what our future will hold, our main concern was, how do we afford college? I didn't qualify for financial aid, But even though some of my cousins did, the cost of school is far out of reach because tuition was increased by 25% since the recession. As the cost of tuition and books continue to increase, MAP grants aren't growing with them, making it more difficult for students to finish school and earn their degree. Will you restore MAP grant funding so that all eligible students receive aid and the grants cover full cost of attending school?
Thank you, Patricia. So the answer to the question is yes, but let's back up a second. We have made college unaffordable. We have made community colleges hard to afford, and four-year public universities almost impossible to afford. We've allowed student debt to pile up in a way that is just a handcuff to so many people. My wife and I finished off paying our student loan debt not too many years ago when we already had 2 children, and we were the lucky ones. We're the lucky ones. So yes, we have to restore MAP grants. Yes, we have to fund our higher education institutions, universities, and community colleges properly. Yes, we have to pass legislation creating real parity for all financial aid and all grants regardless of documentation status, which we have not done yet in the state of Illinois, shamefully. But then we have to talk about the long-term goal, which is to do away with tuition. Because right now, that tuition is a barrier that is stopping people from being able to achieve their full potential. If the institution is public, then the tuition should be free. If we want to do that, we have to transform our tax system to be able to afford it, and that's my plan.
Thank you, Senator. Adan Jimenez, who is also a student at Harold Washington, has a question about immigration.
Hello, I'm also a student at Harold Washington College. I live in the East Side neighborhood of Chicago, where a community where many of my peers are discouraged of pursuing higher education because of their undocumented status. Although Illinois has a large population of undocumented students in Illinois are currently ineligible for federal and state post-secondary financial aid. Bright, hardworking residents are seeking a better life through a college education, but cannot afford it. Considering that there are an estimated 78,000 undocumented young adult immigrants in Illinois between the ages of 18 and 24, will you champion legislation that allows undocumented students to access institutional and financial aid?
Yes, it's a moral imperative. And let's be clear, the Trump administration is attacking immigrants in many ways, and only in some of those respects can the state truly effectively stand up and make a difference. But there are ways. One important way is to make complete parity, regardless of documentation status, for all state-based assistance of any kind. We have to do that. I've been fighting for that. Another way is to pass the strongest possible state legislation. We passed the Trust Act. I've been fighting for the Trust Act for years, but we could do more to make sure that our laws in the state of Illinois protect people regardless of documentation status or trying to report violent crimes. But we also need a governor who's an advocate. We need a governor who is fighting for DACA recipients. We need a governor who is pushing the Democratic Party to be strong on the question of DACA, who stands up at village board and city council meetings across the state and says we need to work together to pass strong, welcoming policies for all immigrants if we want a state that is morally appropriate and economically strong.
Thank you, Senator. Now we have a social human services question from Alejandra Aguilera, also a student at Harold Washington.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Aguilar, and I am a business major at Harold Washington College. Human services, including resources for those domestically abused, are critical for providing students the life circumstances they need to attend school. As a Latina, I grew up in the little village community in Chicago, and I am a victim of domestic violence. Although I did not experience the violence physically, I was exposed to it emotionally. I am not alone. 1 in every 15 children is exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to this violence. Growing up in a household of domestic violence has affected my mental health, but it has not stopped me from pursuing an education. It is with my concern for victims of domestic violence that I ask, will you restore funding for critical human services to fiscal year 2015 levels?
Alejandra, thank you. Thank you for the question, but also thank you for your courage to ask that question in public. And the reason I thank you is that there are thousands and thousands of people, victims of domestic violence, survivors of domestic violence, and you are speaking for all of them. Not each of them may be at a place in their life where they have the courage to do what you did, but you did, and it's an extraordinarily powerful advocacy for many, many people who we all need to come together and help. Thank you. The answer to your question is yes, yes, yes. We went 2 years and 6 days under Governor Rauner with no budget at all, and the consequences for human services, domestic violence services, services for victims of sexual assault, services in mental health and substance abuse, housing, and more was devastating. It's unacceptable, and of course we have to restore services to the pre-crisis level, but we have to do better. We have to make these services universally available as they were not before. That's my plan.
Thank you, Senator. We are going to move to some of the members from the Illinois Latino agenda that will be asking some questions. The first one is about Latino representation, and we have Stephen Monroy from MALDEF.
Thank you.
Hello, Stephen.
Hello, my name is Stephen Monroy, and I'm an attorney with the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, known as MALDEF. MALDEF is an organization that litigates and advocates on issues of concern to the Latino community, and we are members of the Illinois Latino agenda. The Latino population in the state of Illinois is at 17%. Currently, the percentage of Latino employees in state government is only 6%. The current number of Spanish-speaking bilingual employees is only 3%. And these numbers are nowhere near the Latino population of the state or adequate to meet the needs and diversity of the state's population. In addition, as reported in the 2017 report required by the Gubernatorial Boards and Commissions Act, most boards and commissions have little to no Latino representation. What will you do to increase the number of Latinos in state agency and on boards and commissions?
Thank you so much for that question. It starts at the top. If the state government is going to serve the whole state, the state government has to look like the whole state. And I have pledged that my cabinet will look like the state of Illinois in all respects, including full, appropriate representation of Latinos in the top levels of decision-making power in my cabinet. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to appointments to boards and commissions, yes, I am fully committed to that same level of diversity, but I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to do it together with community organizations who are working in neighborhoods and understand who actually is best positioned to represent each community in the state of Illinois in these important decision-making roles. Next, we have to hold agency directors accountable for the kind of recruitment they do and who they hire. And next, you didn't mention this, but it's also important, we've got to look at contracts. I've been fighting to make sure that some of the biggest state contracts, for example, the investment contracts in the pension fund, stop going only to white men, but go into other communities and begin to capitalize those communities and create jobs in other parts of the city. It is so important.
Thank you very much. Our last question for you will be coming from Paul Callejas from Enlace Chicago, and it's about fair tax. Go ahead, Paul. How are you?
Right, I'm good. Hi, Daniel, again.
Hello.
My name is Paul Callejas. I'm representing Enlace Chicago. I sit in their board of directors and also lead their associate board. My organization improves the quality of life of Little Village residents by, through their programming and through their organizing, we fight inequalities in the neighborhood, but also across the city. And we're also a member of the Illinois Latino Agenda. As you know, Illinois' budget faces a structural deficit, meaning projected revenue is not enough to pay all of the state's obligations to its children and families. This has meant that many organizations, just like mine, has really slowed down some of their services to serve the families in their neighborhoods. One of the reasons for this is that Illinois is one of the only 4 states in the nation that constitutionally mandates a flat income tax. Do you support putting a constitutional amendment on the 2018 ballot to allow a fair tax? One that would link tax rates to individuals' ability to pay?
This is so important. Listen, you talked about the inequality. The inequality in our society is immoral. The inequality in our society is leaving families behind without economic opportunity, without a chance to make ends meet. And then our tax system makes it worse. Our tax system is designed to let the richest off the hook. and ask more and more of the middle class and the poor. And then our state government, because the rich have gotten richer and we're not taxing them, our state government can't afford to invest in communities to create opportunity and create jobs. So, do I support getting rid of the ridiculous, archaic, preposterous, unjust, peculiar, surprising flat tax provision in the Constitution that says that it would be unconstitutional to ask Bruce Rauner to pay a higher tax rate than the rest of us? Yes, I support it. I've been fighting that fight since before I got into electoral politics, and you can count on me to get it done as governor. But it's not just that. We need a comprehensive look at how our economy works and where the money is, and how to build a tax system that's designed for today's economy.
Thank you, Senator. 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you so much. Listen, I'm so glad we had a chance to have this conversation, and I think that the place that we ended is really an important place to dwell on for a second. We have a tax system written by the rich for the rich. We have a school funding system written by the rich for the rich. We have a tuition system that's designed to be great if you're already very, very successful. We have immigrant communities who are attacked and not being protected by our state government. And we have a system that works great for a few and poorly for the rest of us. And the question before us is, are we going to try to stop that, or are we going to just go along with it? Will Democrats be the billionaire party, or will we be the working people's party? Will we have an election, or will we have an auction? Will we make the fundamental changes needed to build a society that works for all of us, or will we simply concede? I mean, my name is Daniel Biss. I'm running for Illinois governor because this time, it's time for us to get it right. Thank you very much.
Let's give Senator Biss another round of applause, everybody. Let's see, I'm checking Twitter to see if anybody has any additional reactions that we can address. But so far, nothing. But you know what I like to do in the meantime? Let me touch base with some of the students again, because I want to get some reaction from you. Alejandra Aguilar, you really touched me with your question. That's domestic violence, and many of you will agree, is definitely an area that we Latinos unfortunately get a chance to experiment a lot. Do you feel Senator Biss answer your question?
To answer your question, I would like to keep that in mind, and I keep on thinking about it because, like you said, it is something personal, something really hard to talk about, especially for a person that is a victim. And I would say he did answer my question, but I would just keep on thinking, just to think about it.
You feel there's more that can be done, right?
Yes.
How does everybody else feel? Do you agree? Absolutely, right? Domestic violence is a very difficult topic. Immigration, I know, Adan, you spoke about immigration. As a dreamer myself, you know, the term wasn't used back in my days, but I consider myself a dreamer for life. I know it's difficult. I know the challenge of going to school with that, having to worry about the fact that we don't have money to pay for school, right? Do you feel Senator Biss is someone who addressed your question the way you wanted to?
I truthfully feel that, at least on the surface, the way he responded to the question was a lot of what I wanted to hear, but now it's a matter of if he is elected, what will he do about it?
All right, well, you guys did an awesome job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give the students another round of applause, everybody. Let's see. How are we doing with time? Okay, it's time to introduce our next candidate. And our next candidate is Superintendent from Madison County, Bob Diver. Mr. Diver, welcome. Un fuerte aplauso. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Diver. Good to see you again. Nice to see you again. Please have a seat. Here's your microphone. I will briefly remind you about the format. There's going to be an opportunity for you to give an opening statement, 5 minutes. There is a clock at the very end so you can keep track of the time. You will have 5 questions, and you will have a minute to answer each question, okay? All right, so welcome once again. Please go ahead with your opening remarks.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm Bob Diber. For those of you who haven't met me, as I've participated in many forums in Chicago, I'm the Regional Superintendent of Schools in Madison County. I oversee the jurisdiction of all education there. For 38 years, I've had a commitment to public service and public education. 28 of those years, I was a career and technical teacher, in which I helped young men and women learn skills to go out and get jobs. I'm proud of the fact that today I serve on a workforce investment board in my community, and I help administer WIOA grants to help those who are seeking first-time employment to become employable. That's something that's very important to me. I have 20 years experience in government. I have served at all levels, from being on a city council to serving as a township supervisor, which gives me a unique perspective of other candidates because I've dealt with rural Illinois. I served on a county board as a representative, and I've served the last 10 years as a countywide elected official. Why is that important? That is important because I understand how government works. And there's one aspect in this race that's so important, and that's for you as the electorate to select the next governor to be a person who has experience to govern. That is so important, because that's why we went 2 years without a budget. Because Illinois is a big state. I am the first individual in 20 years from downstate to declare a candidacy as a Democrat to run for governor. There's 102 counties in Illinois, this being the biggest, this being one that has great needs, but I want you to understand that the other 101 counties have very similar problems that you experience here. There are immigrants throughout the entire state of Illinois. I serve the second largest region of Hispanic population south of Joliet in Collinsville District 10. We have a large population of immigrant workers who have decided to make that their home for those first-generation Illinois residents. I have helped facilitate that through my office and work with that population for them to be successful. Agriculture, in fact, is very dear to my heart. I'm a fourth-generation resident of this state. My ancestors immigrated here from Germany, and I own a centennial farm today in Illinois. So I have a real vested interest in this because of the sacrifices of my ancestors. I am married for 25 years. I have two growing sons that attend State University here in Illinois at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. I'm very proud of their success. I was a first-generation college student. It was the aspiration of my father, who didn't get to go to college because of the Depression, that all of his children would be college educated. We all wound up being teachers or involved in education in our family, and that's something we are all very proud of that we have made a commitment to. As your next governor, I will tell you this: I am about all Illinois. I am not about forgetting neighborhoods that have been left behind or that have been ignored, whether they are in Chicago, some dimension of it, or they are in East St. Louis, or they're in Carroll, or they're in Peoria, or they're in Champaign, or they're in Decatur. This is all of Illinois that I'm describing. I'm not running to be governor of Chicago. I'm running to become governor of Illinois. I'm running to make opportunities available for all young people in this state. I have worked with community college programs as an educator. I have served on boards at universities, and my experience makes me highly qualified to understand the issues in this state. I, unlike other individuals, I am not of wealth, I am not of fortune, I'm an everyday guy. I've lived a middle-class life my entire life, and I intend to represent the middle class. Last Thursday, I proposed a progressive income tax scale for the state of Illinois, and I've been on the forefront of leading that initiative. I have also been on the forefront of working to advocate for an equal rights amendment for all citizens of this state, which I think is just paramount that we get right in the next administration. So in your decision, in looking at me as a candidate, I ask you to look at my past record as a public official for 20 years, what I understand, what I know, and what I can bring to the office of governor to help all residents of the state of Illinois. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent Diver. Now there's going to be 5 questions. You have a minute to answer each of them.
Okay.
We have some students that will be asking some of those questions. Our first student is Shabaka Berna, and she has a question about higher education. Or he, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Shabaka Berna, and I graduated from high school, a homeless student without financial support. My top priority was to stabilize my family situation. So I made the decision to work as opposed to attend college. After 2 years, I realized that I should not stall investing in my education, so I decided to attend Harold Washington College. I love it here, but at this point in my journey, it is time to move to a 4-year university. The greatest issue I have with transferring is finding the funds to support my journey through a school like UIC or IIT, both of which I initially avoided based on affordability. The MAP grant will play a major role in my ability to continue on my way through university, yet it does not fully cover tuition for 2- or 4-year colleges like it used to. Will you restore MAP grant funding so all eligible students receive aid that covers the full cost of attending school?
Yes, I will. In fact, I have said that on my appropriation bills, that at the top of the list will be restoring the higher education funding for universities and community colleges at the 2012 level. And that is paramount that we do to encourage young people like you to attend institutions in the state of Illinois rather than looking at opportunities to go elsewhere. As I had said in my opening statement, I know the cost of higher education. I have 2 sons that are attending school. It is not cheap. I realize that. We need to make it affordable for individuals like you. We need to provide assistance so you can go on and be a successful resident. I want you to stay in Illinois as governor. I want you to raise your family here. I want you to buy a house here, and I want you to pay taxes.
Loud and clear. Thank you, Superintendent. Now we have Oscar Sanchez. He has a question about immigration.
My name is Oscar Sanchez, and I'm a student at Harold Washington College. I have the privilege to say that I was born and raised in the city of Chicago. However, my childhood friend, Alan, was born in Mexico City. In order to pursue our dreams, we both knew that obtaining an education will be critical. Rising tuition not only contributes to high student debt, but for my friend Alan, who does not have access to financial aid, it puts college out of reach. My friend attempted this challenge, but had to drop out as he worked full-time in order to pay for part-time status. Higher education should be accessible to undocumented students so they can grow up, settle down, have children, and buy a home in Illinois. Will you champion legislation that allows undocumented students to access institutional and financial aid?
Great question.
Most certainly, and I will tell you the pathway by which I will do that in my answer. First of all, community college programs are funded through 3 sources. They're funded through currently property taxes, state funds, and tuition. So 10%, the upper 10% of high school graduates in most community colleges in Illinois can attend free right now anyway. So there is no reason that we shouldn't allow all students today, I mean August of 2018, to attend free. We can do that. We can do that as a state if we want to. There is no excuse that we don't. Then we need to work on the second dimension. After you prove that you're successful there at that community college, I want you to be able to go on and get your bachelor's degree. And with an attainment of an associate degree, I'm committed as governor to make that dream a reality for you. And I will stand by my word on that, and I will see that all students that complete an associate degree can go on to higher ed.
Thank you, Superintendent. Now we have Alejandra Aguilar. She has a question about social and human services.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Aguilar, and I am a business major at Harold Washington College. Human services, including resources for those domestically abused, are critical for providing students the life circumstances they need to attend school. As a Latina, I grew up in the Little Village community in Chicago, and I am a victim of domestic violence. Although I did not experience violence physically, I was exposed to it emotionally. I am not alone. 1 in every 15 children is exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to this violence. Growing up in a household of domestic violence has affected my mental health, but it has not stopped me from pursuing an education. It is with my concern for victims of domestic violence that I ask, will you restore funding for critical human services to fiscal year 2015 levels?
Well, first of all, I want to commend you on your courage for sharing that with me. And I want to share with you, I want to answer your question first. Yes, I will. Because you are looking at a person that was affected by the budget cuts. Because in 2008 and 2009, as a regional superintendent, I was empowered to hire a limited English-speaking proficient liaison that worked between the public school systems in my jurisdiction and the Latino community that I represent. During that period of time, there was a young girl who was a slave, was brought here from Mexico as a slave, living with a family that was being sexually abused. She wound up being pregnant, all types of trauma. Had I not had the resources to help her, her life would have been greater traumatized. So I sympathize with your case as to what you've observed. I sympathize with all those victims who have been in these situations. And from my firsthand experience as governor, yes, I will restore that funding.
Thank you, Superintendent. Now we have Jose Lopez from LULAC and the Illinois Hispanic State Employee Association. He has a question about Latino representation in government.
Hi, like I mentioned, Jose Lopez, the current state director of LULAC of Illinois and the vice president of the Illinois Association of Hispanic State Employees. The mission of our association is to increase the number of Latinos in state government, as well as state boards and commissions. Because right now we need to ensure the full delivery of services to our community and resources. And we are members of the agenda, Latino agenda. The Latino population in the state of Illinois right now is 17%. The number of Latino employees in state government is only 6%. And of that, the bilingual number of Spanish-speaking workers is only 3%. So the numbers are nowhere near the Latino population for the state or adequate to meet the needs and delivery of services to our population. In addition, as reported, the Gubernatorial Boards and Commissions Act, most boards and commissions have little or no Latino representation. What would you do to increase the number of Latinos in state agencies and boards and commissions?
Well, first and foremost, they will be part of my cabinet because they best can communicate with their neighborhoods and their communities, especially the Department of Human Services, the Department of Economic Commerce and Opportunity, as well as DCFS. These are 3 critical agencies that need Latino representation. I myself met with the Latino caucus in Chicago, was advised that maybe I should consider a Latino running mate, which I did. I've reached out. In fact, I offered the office of my running mate of lieutenant governor to a Latino. She made a decision. She had a conflict of interest, so she declined. So I had to make another choice. So I see a valuable role of representation in my cabinet, and I will address that, and I will guarantee you'll have equal representation.
Thank you, Superintendent. Now we have Karina Ayala Bermejo. She's the new CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino. Karina, I haven't had a chance to see you. Congratulations.
Gracias, Enrique.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hello, it was a pleasure to speak to you. My name is Karina Ayala Bermejo. I'm the president and CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino. Instituto fulfills the American dream to ensure that everyone's potential, especially immigrants, is fulfilled, and that we do that through education and training and employment. We additionally are members of the Illinois Latino Agenda. And as you know, the budget faces a structural deficit, which means that the projected revenue is simply not enough to pay for all of the state's obligations to its children and families. This has meant that Instituto has not been able to provide its quality services to the immigrant families that we serve. And fewer services to immigrants during this critical time is problematic. One of the reasons that Illinois is because Illinois is one of only 4 states across the nation that has a constitutional mandate for a flat tax rate. Do you support putting a constitutional amendment on the 2018 ballot for a fair tax, and one that would link tax rates to an individual's ability to pay? Thank you.
Definitely yes. And as I said in my opening statement, on January 4th, at a press conference here in the city, I laid out a model for a progressive graduated income tax, which is based on a scale of 1 to 6%, with lower income earners paying 1% and millionaires paying 6%, in which this scale gives working individuals more earning power to pay rent, to pay their bills, to have money to help send their kids to school, to buy clothes, etc. That's what we need to do as a state. I do not accept the answer that I've been fighting for a progressive income tax. I am laying out the roadmap to get there. I am the candidate that has taken a bold position, that has put numbers to a plan, not rhetoric to a campaign issue. And this is what you need to pay attention to. And as your next governor, I will lead this initiative forward to see that Illinois changes its tax schedule, that we do not continue to tax the poor, and they are the tax mules of this state, and the rich do not pay taxes. It is a shame that millionaires in this state pay no income tax. That's a shame.
Thank you, Superintendent. Now you have a minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. Excuse my passion there, but it tells you a little bit about myself. You know, as a candidate for governor, it is really a challenge being a middle-class person with the amount of money that it takes to run for governor. And I have been encouraged by a lot of people to get out of this race. But I am in this for the long haul, to give people a choice, to give students a choice, to give the working poor a choice, to give middle-class residents in this state a choice. You do not have to elect a billionaire again. We have one in Washington, we have one in Springfield, and I will tell you, the person most qualified to become governor of this state is someone who has served in local government, that is closest to the people, that has seen their pain, that has seen their need, and that can represent them and govern for everybody. I am about uniting this state, not dividing it. I'm Bob Diber. I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody from the audience who has any comments thus far about what's going on in the forum? Yes, please go ahead. We'll get you a microphone. If you can say your name and what your comment is, that'd be phenomenal.
My name is Kalia Johnson, and the first person that spoke, I just wanted to know why. I want them to give an example of how our current president is attacking immigrants and women and all the people that he said he's attacking, and what everybody's response is to the growing hostility towards white males and towards people who are non-minorities, and and the rich, and growing hostility towards those people, and like other important things like the nuclear war with North Korea, more important stuff like that, instead of attacking non-minorities, and just saying how the president is attacking these people without giving any evidence for their claims.
Those are all issues that matter to all of us, and we wanna thank you for making the time to come and be with us in this event tonight. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your participation. How many of you are registered to vote? I'm curious. Raise your hand. How many of you want to register to vote? Ooh, I see a few hands. I got good news for you. Just go to entrance number 3. There's a registration table, okay? We'll take care of that for you right now. How does that sound? All right, thank you. Let's move on, everybody. Our next candidate is Theo Hardiman. He is here with us tonight. Let's give him a big round of applause. Good to see you, Theo. Use the microphone. So I want to remind you, you got 5 minutes for your opening statement, and then there's going to be 5 questions. You will have 1 minute to answer each question, okay?
Okay, 5 minutes.
Please go ahead.
Okay, everybody, I'm Theo Hardiman, Democratic candidate for governor here in the state of Illinois. I ran for governor back in 2014 and secured close to 30% of the state vote. I'm running again. My running mate, her name is Patricia Avery. She's a former president of the NAACP in Champaign-Urbana, and she's a former county commissioner in Champaign-Urbana. Our campaign is powered by the people. Your voice is our mission. We have a 2020 plan which represents a perfect vision for the good people of Illinois. Part of the plan includes pushing forward the progressive tax, the financial transaction tax, that's House Bill 453, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, supporting immigration here, and I'll talk about that during the question period, but I want to say this to you. I heard a few people talk about what Latino people being involved in higher level administration. I'm African American, a little Puerto Rican in me as well, so that'll solve that issue right there, okay? I just want to let you know that, all right? So the thing is this here, I'm fighting for everybody in the state of Illinois to make sure everybody has an equal opportunity at success. Another part of our plan is to make sure that women's rights are supported on a higher level. When I talk about that, because it's been brought to my attention that women that work the same job that men work do not receive the same pay. A lot of candidates running for office right now for governor, I've experienced racism in my personal life. I've experienced discrimination in my personal life. I'm the former director of Ceasefire Illinois, a proven model that gets results when it comes to reducing gun violence. I grew up in the heart of the ghetto, the Henry Horner Projects in the south side of Chicago. So I've experienced everything everybody's talking about. A lot of the candidates are talking about what they want to do to end discrimination, excessive force. I was one of the guys that stood on the front line when the Laquan McDonald video was released. We made sure that Superintendent McCarthy was fired. And I'm the guy that when McCarthy first came to Chicago, I told Mayor Rahm Emanuel back then he wasn't a good fit for Chicago. So I've been doing this for quite some time. When it comes down to reducing gun violence in Chicago, I have to be straight up and honest with the audience here. About 85% of the homicides that occur in Chicago occur in the African American community. It's incumbent upon black men to organize like never before to address the issue of gun violence in the black community. And once we reduce the homicides that way, then as governor, I will come in and make sure we get the resources we need to make sure these young men, ex-offenders, veterans, people from all walks of life receive the resources they need to become productive members of society. That's part of my plan. The Hardiman 2020 plan with Patricia Avery. And last but not least, we're running for governor to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity at success in Illinois. College students, I'm a former alumni, I forgot to mention that. I graduated from here at Washington College, okay? I take that, I graduated.
Welcome home.
Right, I'm back at home. I worked 2 jobs back then and was going to night school, taking 4 classes, taking care of the business. When I left here at Washington, I went on to obtain my bachelor's degree from Northeastern University, then my master's degree from Northeastern University. So I'm not a stranger to Chicago or the state of Illinois. Remember, I'm running to represent people from Southern Illinois, Central Illinois, Northern Illinois, all over the place. But I have a lot of friends in the Latino community, the white community, the Asian community, the African American community, and the African community, so I want to represent everybody as your governor. I want you all to help Theo Hardiman become the first African American governor of the state of Illinois. I need your help in making that happen, not just because I'm African American, because I'm qualified, and I got a touch of Puerto Rican in me too, all right? So with that being said, there we go.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hardiman. The first question is going to come from Khalik Warner, and it's about higher education.
Okay. Hello, how are you doing today? My name is Khalik Warner. I'm a student at Harold-Washington College, a returning student. Originally, I went to a school in 2009 with an outrageous tuition rate just to receive an art degree. I received a $1,000 MAP grant that barely put a dent in my $20,000 tuition. So now in 2018, students are receiving a higher tuition rate and an even less MAP grant refund, just like more than ever before. So in response to some form of relief, how will you restore the MAP grant and allow students to receive the full aid and the grants cover the full cost of attending school?
Yes, I will restore the MAP grant process, but I want to say this also. I'm probably the only candidate running for governor that owed a student loan in my life before. So I know how it is to pay back a student loan, sincerely. So part of the 2020 plan with the Hardeman and Avery campaign and our administration, the reason I'm pushing House Bill 453 because it's a financial transaction tax. That tax can bring in $3 billion of new revenue here in the state of Illinois. And I'm not talking this way just to get a good soundbite. I like being honest with everybody. I'm not the governor that's going to be all over the place. Within the tax, with the financial transaction tax, that we can allow college students to have free college tuition up until the bachelor's degree level. That's what I'm pushing for. Free college tuition up until the bachelor's degree level, all right? So I support reinstating the MAP grants, and I'm pushing for that, for free college tuition, okay? And that's what higher education is about, as far as Hardeman, Avery, and Kemp. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Now we have Adan Jimenez. He has a question about immigration.
Okay.
Hello, again, my name is Adan Jimenez, and I'm a student at Harold Washington College. I live in the East Side neighborhood of Chicago, a community where many of my peers are discouraged from pursuing higher education because of their undocumented status. Although Illinois has a large population of undocumented individuals, undocumented students in Illinois are currently ineligible for federal and state post-secondary financial aid. Bright, hardworking students who are seeking a better life through a college education cannot afford it. Considering that there are an estimated 78,000 undocumented young adult immigrants in Illinois between the ages of 18 and 24, will you champion legislation that allows undocumented students to access institutional and financial aid?
Yes, so first and foremost, with undocumented students, undocumented immigrants, we have to work on a pathway to citizenship for the undocumented people, okay? The reality is that my name is Tio. That means uncle in Spanish. I'm like your uncle, little brother, okay? I'm young, me llamo Tio. I just want to say that. So yes, definitely I'm going to champion the cause for DACA and undocumented immigrants. But this is the thing, I want to make this clear too, because I speak a certain way. A lot of times I speak what a lot of people want to say, so I just bring it out. See, everybody in America immigrated here other than my ancestors. My ancestors came over here on the bottom of slave ships. We were forced to be here, okay? So we're not immigrants that coming from the African American community, but when it comes down to people judging immigrants, people need to stop judging people over here. And I get tired of hearing the words of undocumented immigrant. We're human beings. We are human beings. And we need a governor that's going to be in the governor's office that's going to treat everybody like human beings and work on the pathway to citizenship for undocumented, immigrants, and make sure that we fight Donald Trump and all of his type of policies out here in a sincere way. So yes, to answer your question, but I don't fake with nobody. Initially, some time ago, I was just straight lawman. I was saying if a person came over here and they were, undocumented, they need to go back and come back legally. That's what my thinking was some years ago. But that has shifted because I have a lot of friends that I've talked to. Everybody wants a better way of life. And we can't knock people. Everybody came here for a better way of life. So how can we knock the next person? We cannot do that. I'm the type of governor going to take the bull by the horn, make the changes as soon as I get in office and support that process all the way. All right? I'll take a clap for that.
All right. Now we have Alejandra Aguilar with a question about social and human services.
Social, okay.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Aguilar, and I am a business major at Harold Washington College. Human services, including resources for those domestically abused, are critical for providing students the life circumstances they need to attend school. As a Latina, I grew up in the Little Village community in Chicago, and I am a victim of domestic violence. Although I did not experience the violence physically, I was exposed to it emotionally. I am not alone. 1 in every 15 children is exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to this violence. Growing up in a household of domestic violence has affected my mental health, but it has not stopped me from pursuing an education. It is with my concern for victims of domestic violence that I ask, will you restore funding for critical human services to fiscal year 2015 levels?
Oh, without a doubt, we must restore funding to critical social service agencies that serve the vulnerable populations. But let me say this to everybody as well. During my career with Ceasefire, I helped rescue 12 women from a prostitution ring, and I had a recovery home where I had about 75 women in there. We helped them turn their lives around from drug abuse, and also helped save the life of 2 transgender women. The guys were threatening to take their lives, and we saved their lives as well. So in that arena, and I've done volunteer work at Ashante House. That's a domestic violence shelter where I've talked to women about the pitfalls of that domestic violence. So I definitely will restore funding to mental health facilities, domestic violence shelters, for the children, everything we can do. And all those funds will come out of the progressive tax and the financial transaction tax. Both of those taxes are not taxing working class people, it's taxing the rich people and the wealthy people. They need to pay their fair share of taxes. So to answer your question directly, yes, I'll fund those programs immediately. And I'll come and get you and I'll show you that we funded them. All right? That's right. Hands on, hands on.
All right, thank you. Stephen Monroy from MALDEF has a question about Latino representation in government.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Stephen Monroy, and I'm an attorney with the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, known as MALDEF. MALDEF is an organization that litigates and advocates on issues of concern to the Latino community. The Latino population in the state of Illinois is 17%, but currently the percentage of Latino employees in the state government is only at 6%. The current number of Spanish-speaking bilingual employees is even lower at 3%. These numbers are nowhere near the Latino population of the state or adequate to meet the needs and the diversity of the state's population. In addition, as reported in the 2017 report required by the Gubernatorial Boards and Commissions Act, most boards and commissions have little to no Latino representation. What will you do to increase the number of Latinos in state agencies and representation on boards and commissions?
Yes, what I would do is I have some Latino people working on my campaign right now. I would make sure we look at the numbers like you just cited, and I would change the narrative there. The reality is that Latino people and all people deserve an equal chance at success in Illinois. I've done an enormous amount of work in Little Village, Pilsen, during my career with Ceasefire, the Back of the Yards, Brighton Park, Humboldt Park, Waukegan, a lot of work in a lot of communities, Latino communities, so I'm not a stranger to the Latino community. So the reality is that I would hire the most qualified individuals that can represent it. We're going to change them numbers. It's 6% now. When I become governor, we're looking at making it maybe 10 to 15 to 20%. We have to change the numbers, one person at a time. So that's what I'll do to answer your question. Okay? I'll do that.
Fair enough?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't want to
Speaking of
overtalk it.
fair,
Yes.
there's a question about fair tax that will be asked by Paul Callejas from Enlace Chicago.
I work with Enlace too. When Chuy Garcia was the CEO over there, I worked with Chuy.
He was one of the founding members.
Right.
Well, my name is Paul Callejas. I'm from Enlace Chicago. And my organization, as you already know, improves the quality of life of Little Village residents through their organizing and different programming across the neighborhood and the city. In addition, we're a member of the Illinois Latino Agenda. As you know, Illinois' budget faces a structural deficit, meaning projected revenue is not enough to pay all of the state's obligations to its children and families. This has really slowed down Enlace's efforts to help all these families. One of the reasons for this is that Illinois is one of the only 4 states in the nation that constitutionally mandates a flat income tax. Do you support putting a constitutional amendment on the 2018 ballot to allow for a fair tax? One that would link tax rates to an individual's ability to pay?
Yeah, I support that. I've gone on the record to support that process. There should be like a graduated tax. For example, if people making $25,000 to $35,000 a year, they should pay only 1% to 2% taxes. If somebody's making $100,000, $150,000, they should be a range of maybe 3% to 6%. But if you're making $250,000 to $1 million or better, you should be paying 7% to 10% taxes. That's a graduated tax. It's a progressive system, which is definitely overdue. It's totally overdue. It makes no sense for the rich people to continue to become more wealthier, and poor people are just, like dealing with just trying to, every day trying to make it by every day, robbing Peter to pay Paul just to survive. So I definitely support a graduated tax system, and I have that plan set up. That's part of our 2020 plan, which represents a perfect vision for the people of Illinois. Okay? Keep up the good work in LACE. I had a lot of years of experience working with them. Yes.
Closing statement, 1 minute.
My closing statement would be, I'm Tio Hardiman running for governor. I'm a different type of candidate. I want everybody to go to our website, if you don't mind, hardimanforillinois.org. Take a look at our campaign, our plan, and our policies. Help us make history here in Illinois. And my running mate again, Patricia Avery, what we would like to do is empower Illinois, and it's not so much what Illinois can do for everybody, it's what we all can do for Illinois as well. So the billionaires, what they do, they come out and they drown out the voices of the working class and poor people because they had the money to get their message out and package themselves like the coming of the next great Messiah. But I'm asking everybody, you know me personally, support Tio Hardiman for governor. If you want me to come to your community, talk at your church, talk to the people at your organization, reach out to us, and I would love to come out and support the whole process. I won 30% of the state vote in 2014. 30% again, we could win this primary hands down. Tio Hardiman and Patricia Avery, we represent the 99.9% of the poor, working class, and middle class people. I did some research. You have 17 billionaires in Illinois. If all the billionaires support each other, they would get 17 votes. 17 votes, people. We need to think out of the box. Just because people have money, that does not entitle them to become governors of the state of Illinois. Look at Donald Trump. Look at Bruce Rauner. Bruce Rauner cannot point to one accomplishment since he's been the governor. I'm just giving you something to think about. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give you another round of applause, everybody. I want to read some comments to you that I've seen in the Twitter feed. I want to remind you to please participate with the hashtags that you see in the background. Let's see, the Latino Policy Forum tweeted, with undocumented people, we need to find a pathway to citizenship. Tio Hardiman just said that. These are some of the quotes that some of the candidates have said throughout the night. Senator Biz, we have to take on the greed of Wall Street, the power of huge corporations, and the influence billionaires. It's the moral thing to do. It's time to stand for all working families. And he thanked the Latino Policy Forum for having him here tonight. Let's welcome our next candidate, Mr. Bob Marshall. Is he down already? Yes, thank you. Mr. Marshall, welcome. Here's your microphone. Hello, sir, how are you?
Fine.
Please have a seat.
Thank you.
My name is Enrique Rodriguez. Thank you for making it here tonight. You are going to have 5 minutes for your opening statement, and then we'll proceed with the questions, okay? Please go ahead.
Hi, well, nice to see you here. My name is Dr. Robert Marshall. I'm a physician. I work at Oak Forest Hospital, which is one of the Cook County hospitals. We see the sickest of the sick and the poorest of the poor there. I'm a physician. I live in Burr Ridge. I have an office in Berwyn. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I grew up in public housing, or government housing. We used to call it the projects then, or cardboard city. And it was integrated. It was an integrated in the 1940s and 50s. My father was a policeman. My mother was a homemaker. And I won scholarships to schools in the East, including Harvard Medical School. So I know the value of higher education. I was in Vietnam. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I was in Vietnam for about a year and a half as a physician. And now I'm running for governor. I'm not a millionaire or billionaire. I'm an average person, in my opinion, I think. I don't have a lot of money for my campaign. I have 4 children. And I've been living in Illinois now for 37 years and 34 years in Berwyn. Now, the issues in this campaign are legalizing cannabis or marijuana. It's time that we end this war on drugs, which is ruining many people and many families, especially in the minority populations. I also believe we should allow casino gambling for Chicago. Just look how much money comes into Las Vegas via that way. How many casinos do you have down making millions of dollars for you in the city? None, not a one. And I'm the only candidate that's brought this up. Now, these two sources of income will produce enormous amounts of money and almost solve a large percentage of the problems that you're going to talk about tonight. Now, I want to introduce another thing tonight. This is a new, bold idea that only I have. And that idea is to divide Illinois up into smaller states. 3 separate states. The city of Chicago, which would be its own state, with its own governor, its own constitution, its own laws. And then the suburbs would be the second state, and then the rest of the state would be the third state. Think about it for a minute. If you were a minority group, it doesn't matter, African American, Hispanic, LGBT, all of a sudden, overnight, you will have an enormous amount of political power that you didn't have before, because in your new state, you will make up a much bigger population, much percentage of the population. African American make up 25% in your new state. Hispanic, 20 to 25%. LGBT group population, maybe 10%. You will be able to elect your own governor. And that's how you solve your problem, political power. And my idea, and I'm the only one that has it, I think we'll do this for you. Well, I'd like to thank you for inviting me here, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. We have 5 questions for you. Some of the students will be doing them as well. The first one is Khalid Warner. He has a question about higher education.
Hello. My name is Khalid Warner. I'm a returning student from Harold Washington College. I originally went to a school in 2009 with an outrageous tuition just to receive an art degree. I received a $1,000 MAP grant that barely put a dent in my $20,000 tuition. Now in 2018, students are receiving a higher tuition rate and less of a financial cushion than ever before. So in order to provide relief, will you restore the MAP grant that will allow eligible students to receive aid and grants cover the full cost of attending schools?
Right. I'll try to do as much as I can anyway. But the key here, there's 3 keys, is generating new money, and legalizing marijuana will do it. By the way, it's going to be on the ballot. Did you know that? Legalizing marijuana is going to be on the ballot in Cook County. So I want to see every one of you get out there and vote for it. And casino gambling is your second way of generating money. We can change the tolls on the tollway. And then if you have your own state, the state of Chicago, where you have your own government, your own constitution, everything is yours, you can solve your problems like that.
Thank you. We have Oscar Sanchez with a question about immigration.
My name is Oscar Sanchez, and I'm a student at Harold Washington College. I have the privilege to say that I was born and raised in the city of Chicago. However, my childhood friend Alan was born in Mexico City. In order to pursue our dreams, we both knew that obtaining an education would be critical. Rising tuition not only contributes to high student debt, but for my friend Alan, who does not have access to financial aid, he puts college out of reach. My friend attempted this challenge but had to drop out as he worked full-time in order to pay for part-time status. Higher education should be accessible to undocumented students so they can grow up, settle down, have children, and buy a home in Illinois. Will you campaign legislation that allows undocumented students to access institutional and financial aid?
Yes. I want to say one thing to all of you, regardless of what country you're from. You are welcome in this country. There are some people in high places in this country. You may think that you are not welcome, but you really are. And I'm a strong supporter of the DACA program. I'm a strong supporter of a path to citizenship. People should not be waiting forever to be a citizen. There should be a path to citizenship, and I'm for that.
Thank you very much. We have Marco. How come I haven't seen Marco? Oh, there you are. Welcome, Marco. Bienvenido. Marco has a question about social and human services.
Doctor, good evening. My name is Marco Jacome. I'm an executive director of an organization called Healthcare Alternative Systems, HAS, that provides substance abuse treatment, mental health, domestic violence, anger management for the last 42 years, primarily to the Hispanic community. As you know, human services is an anchor of accessibility to services in our Hispanic community. For example, families who are in need of domestic violence services, they need intervention, prevention, treatment, accessibility to continue that kind of services. As statistically show, the 1 in every 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year. And 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to this violence. Challenges today affects not only in the emotional, spiritual area of the individual and the family. My question to you is that in 1995 was an adequate funding for community services or social agencies or the human services. Since then, about 40% of the funding has been diminished. So organizations like us and many others who provide services to the minority community, especially the Latino population, are suffering, and consequently families don't have access to those kinds of services. So the question for us will be, what you will do in order to restore at least the level of funding since I mentioned 2015.
Thank you very much for that question. I listened to some of the other people that asked the same question, and there was a lady who did that and said it was a very brave thing for her to come out and talk about. We do need more psychological, psychiatric, and mental health treatment in this state. One of the big issues I've mentioned is getting rid of this war on drugs. We need to legalize marijuana, because that destroys a lot of families and causes a lot of violence throughout the whole city of Chicago. We need to decriminalize cocaine and morphine. That's another source of violence in this city. We need to have them better funded, there's no doubt about it. With these two or three sources I've mentioned, marijuana, casino gambling, and then having your own state in the city of Chicago, you would have control of the city, of your new state. You would be the boss. You would elect your own people because you have to make up such a large percentage of the population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. We have Jose Lopez. He has a question about Latino representation in government.
Hi, I'm the current state director of LULAC of Illinois and vice president of the Illinois Association of Hispanic State Employees. The mission of the association is to increase the number of state employees in state agencies and boards and commissions so that we have adequate services to our community. And we are a member of the Latino Agenda. The Latino population in the state of Illinois right now is 17%. We only have 6% representation in state government, and only 3% of those are bilingual paid persons that speak Spanish. So these numbers are nowhere near the Latino population of the state, adequate to meet the needs and diversity of our state population. In addition, it was reported in the Gubernatorial Board and Commissions Act, most boards and commissions have little or no Latino representation. What would you do to increase the number of Latinos in state agencies and boards and commissions?
Well, I would do my best to not select as many people as I could. But I've mentioned to you what I would like to see. You mentioned a number, 17%. And in the city of Chicago, it's probably in the range of 20 to 25%. Okay, that is a big number. And you can elect in your new state of Chicago, you could elect, name it, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor. You'll have the power to do it. Now, 23% is not a majority, but you unite yourself with a couple of other minorities, and you've got political power. And that's what you need to solve problems.
Thank you. Paul Callejas from Enlace Chicago has a question about fair tax.
Hello, doctor. My name is Paul Callejas from Enlace Chicago. My organization improves the quality of life for Little Village residents through our different programming and organizing to confront systematic inequalities in various economic and social access. In addition, we are a member of the Illinois Latino Agenda. As you know, Illinois budget faces a structural deficit, meaning projected revenue is not enough to pay all of the state's obligations to its children and families. This has really slowed down Enlace's efforts on helping a lot of working class families. One of the reasons is that Illinois is one of the only 4 states in the nation that constitutionally mandates a flat income tax. Do you support putting a constitutional amendment on the 2018 ballot to allow for a fair tax? One that will link tax rates to an individual's ability to pay?
I'll answer it very simply, no. I am not for a graduated income tax. I am against it. And there's many reasons. A tax like that punishes labor, hard work. Many of you have parents. They're working very hard. They have stores, they're mom and pop stores. They're working a lot of hours to put you through school maybe, 50 hours a week, 60, and they're making fairly good money. Now Mr. Pritzker and the state governor is going to come to them and say, you're making very good money and you're working very hard. You have to pay a higher percentage than everybody else. That's not fair to me, especially if there's other sources of income. I mentioned marijuana, and I mentioned casino gambling, which are brand new industries that are untapped. I'm opposed to a graduated income tax, and I'm also opposed to any further tax on income, your income tax, because it taxes labor, hard work.
Thank you. We will now give you 1 minute for your closing statement.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me here. My basic philosophy is that we need to find new sources of income or new sources of revenue, new sources of taxes to finance this government. This government is in trouble. Everybody knows that. A lot of the taxes are too high. I was one of the first ones who came out against the soda tax. Property taxes are too high. That's why people are leaving. We have to do something about these high taxes. We have to find new sources of income and brand new ways of solving our problems. And I mentioned my approach here tonight, and I hope you'll accept it.
Dr. Marshall, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give Dr. Marshall another round of applause, everybody. Interesting. Marty, you're still here. Yeah. I just saw your tweet. That's a new one. Cut Illinois in 3 states. What do you think about that?
I think it's...
Let me get your microphone. We'll get your microphone.
Well, it's an interesting idea. I don't think it's practically going to work. Right now, we need to look at how we can make existing government more efficient. By creating more levels of government like that, you're not going to create more efficiencies, you're going to create less efficiencies. And I think right now, we're at a time in our country where we want to promote unity. There are other states that are talking about tearing themselves apart, California, for example. I don't think Illinois should be one of those states. We ought to be looking at how we can make existing government work better for more people, as opposed to creating this really unusual set of governments that exist under what should really be one state. But throw the ideas out there. That's the beauty of the democratic process. We can debate these ideas and see where they go. That one, I think, is probably not the direction Illinois should be going in.
Now, let me ask you, because so much has been said about legalizing marijuana and taxing marijuana in a similar way that alcohol is taxed to give dividends to the state. What do you think about that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of the Democratic candidates for governor support that point of view. I think we should look for other areas of income, that being one of them. But I don't think that that also is an argument for not looking at how we should reform our tax code. I think we do need a progressive tax. I think we do need to legalize and tax marijuana. And I think we ought to look at other innovative ways to raise revenue other than from the poorest of the poor and the middle class.
Do you support the idea of having casinos to generate more revenue?
I think we need to be careful there. One of the challenges there is that casinos and gambling in general tends to impact the lower income communities. So if you create a progressive tax to tax the higher wealthy people, then you expand casinos. What you're doing is you're going back and you're taxing poor people again, because they're going to continue to go to those slot machines. They're going to hope that they're going to win that lottery. And so I think we ought to be very careful. If we do expand, it ought to be thoughtfully and strategically, not just across the board, because we don't want to hurt the people we're trying to help the most.
Interesting to hear your comments. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
I hear a lot of yeah. It's always interesting and fascinating to hear what each and every one of you have to say about the different areas that we are concerned about in our state. So we continue to invite you to tweet. Please feel free to do so while the candidates are speaking, and then hopefully the next time we have a break, we'll touch base again with the tweets, okay? I think we're ready for Mr. J.B. Pritzker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pritzker, welcome. Let's give him a round of applause. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
There you go.
I'm going to stand up here.
Oh, please, be my guest. Whatever makes you comfortable. We're going to give you 5 minutes for your opening statement, and then you'll have a minute to answer each of the questions, okay? Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Enrique, and thanks to all of you for spending your evening dedicated to learning about the candidates for governor and obviously engaging in political discourse. Before I begin, I want to congratulate the student body here for what you've done. This is really an amazing thing to put together. I know that you began organizing this last summer, and so it's been I'm sure a journey for all of you, and congratulations on that. And to the Latino Policy Forum and to the Illinois Latino Agenda, to Young Invincibles, to Univision, and to everybody who helped put this event together, thank you. I especially want to call out, of course, Juan Salgado, who's the leader here at City Colleges of Chicago, who's done just a terrific job in his short tenure. Over a century ago, my great-grandfather, Nicholas, came to Chicago as a refugee fleeing for his life. And he came here penniless. This state and our country took him in and saved his life. Illinois gave him a home when he had none. It gave him freedom when others would not. It gave him a public education and the opportunity to build a better life for himself and for all of us who came after him. Now, I wonder what this country would be like for my great-grandfather if the President of the United States had sat in the Oval Office and said, "We don't want you here." What if the president or the governor had said, because of where you come from, or because of your skin color, or your religion, you are not welcome in America or in the state of Illinois? I'm running for governor because everything that we care about is under siege by a racist xenophobe in Washington, D.C., and by his local silent partner, Bruce Rauner. This state gave my great-grandfather a safe haven and an opportunity to succeed. I've spent my life fighting so that everyone receives the same opportunities that he had. Over 200,000 children across the state of Illinois get breakfast in schools because I worked to expand President Obama's program for school breakfast. Thousands of families in Chicago and across the state can send their kids to quality preschool and quality childcare because of the work that I've done for more than 20 years as a national advocate for universal preschool and universal childcare. I'm proud to have supported the Center on Wrongful Convictions that helps people get freedom from injustice. People who have been the victims of a too frequently unjust legal system. Let's keep our young people out of prison and make sure they can get a job. And unlike Bruce Rauner, when Donald Trump attacked immigrant communities, I was not silent. I went to O'Hare Airport and I protested the night that he issued that racist travel ban. I stood with Representative Luis Gutierrez in front of Trump Tower and told the truth. The president is a racist, and hate has no place in Illinois. It's time for a governor who stands up for all of our communities. It's time for a governor who will make this state a firewall against Donald Trump's bigoted agenda. When I'm governor, I will do everything in my power to fight for the Dreamers. We need a permanent legislative fix so that DACA recipients can thrive in Illinois and the parents can secure a pathway to citizenship. At the state level, I'll enforce the Trust Act and work with our communities to ensure that the Trust Act is implemented exactly how it was intended. More than that, I am committed to building economic opportunity in Latino communities across our state. There are 2 million Latinos in Illinois. You are significant contributors to the state's tax base, to our consumer markets, and to our workforce. We need a governor who will recognize the economic prosperity of Illinois is tied directly to progress for Latino workers and Latino families. What's good for Latinos is good for Illinois. I'm proud to be running on real plans to move Illinois forward, not all talk, real plans. My plan for jobs will support small businesses in the communities that need them most by expanding access to capital. It's time we directly invest in creating jobs in the Latino community, which has frankly for too long been forgotten by this governor and forgotten for decades by the state of Illinois.
The 5 minutes are up, Mr. Pritzker.
May I finish with one line? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure.
I just want to be respectful to all the candidates.
I appreciate, my apologies. Most importantly, we need a governor who listens. This campaign and my administration will reflect the diversity of our state. There is no path forward without all of you at the table. We have to move forward together. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and to share my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting, but
that's okay.
No, that's for you. That's for you. I want to remind you there's a clock at the very end. You're going to have 1 minute to answer each question. I know it's a tough task, but it's been the same for every candidate. We have some students that will be asking the questions, as you know. I want to call Maurice Rogers with a question about higher education.
Hello. Hello, my name is Maurice Rogers, and I attend Olive Harvey Community College. I'm studying urban studies with a focus on African American history. I graduate in May, and I am seriously considering leaving the state to further my education. As a Chicago native, I have seen the outcome of underfunded, impoverished communities, and reinvesting in higher education is needed for the progression of our state, honestly. Currently, Illinois is ranked 5th in the nation for the highest tuition at public four-year institutions and is one of the country's leaders for student out-migration. Furthermore, upon graduation, I want to reinvest in my state and my city, but the current tuition spikes, they kind of prohibit me from doing so. Ooh, I got a phone. Sorry. MAP grants used to fully cover the costs. MAP grants used to fully cover the total cost of attending public universities and community colleges. If elected, we restore MAP grant funding so that all eligible students receive aid and the grant fully covers the full cost of attending school.
I will. Thank you very much for that question. Yeah, it's a terrific question and one that I think we've got to focus on because remember, 72,000 fewer students are going to school in higher education in Illinois as a result of Bruce Rauner's failed policies. 72,000. And tuition has gone up, and we have lost faculty all across this state. And they're now talking about closing one or two of our state universities. it's all gone the wrong direction under Bruce Rauner. We have got to step up to the plate and fund our education system and make sure that we're funding our MAP grants. And more than that, we've got to make college more affordable across the board. Tuition increases have to go away. They've frozen tuition, which is great in the state, but it went up too much until we got here. So we've got to stand up and make sure that we're providing the kind of financial aid that kids need, because you are our future economic resources. You're also our kids.
Thank you. We have Adan Jimenez with a question about immigration.
Hello. I'm a student at Harold Washington College. I live in the East Side neighborhood of Chicago, a community where many of my peers are discouraged of pursuing higher education because of their undocumented status. Although Illinois has a large population of undocumented individuals, undocumented students in Illinois are currently ineligible for federal and state post-secondary financial aid. Bright, hardworking residents are seeking a better life through education, but cannot afford it. Considering that there are an estimated 78,000 undocumented young adult immigrants in Illinois between the ages of 18 and 24, will you champion legislation that allows undocumented students to access institutional and financial aid?
Well, there are about 5 different reasons, and I only have a minute. There are 5 different reasons why, yes, I will champion that effort. But I talked about one of them in my opening remarks, which is the tremendous economic benefit that immigration has for the state of Illinois. That should be something that people keep in mind every day. But we also need to recognize that we need to make financial aid available across the board to undocumented immigrants and other immigrants and make it affordable. That's hugely important, making it affordable. But we've got to open up services across the board to undocumented immigrants. I'll give you an example. I put forward a plan for expanding healthcare across the state of Illinois. I'm the only candidate that has a real plan for expanding healthcare access. It's called Illinois Cares, and it will expand access that includes undocumented immigrants. So look, child care services, because people who go to college also happen to have children sometimes. Child care services have been taken away by Bruce Rauner, we're going to restore. And we're going to make sure that tuition is affordable and there's universal health care.
Thank you, Mr. Pritzker. We have some members, as you know, from the Illinois Latino agenda who have some questions. The first one is going to be Marco Jacome. He has a question about social and human services.
Pritzker, good evening. My name is Marco Jacome. I'm Executive Director of an organization called Healthcare Alternative Systems. This is a behavioral health organization that we provide mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, anger management, primarily to the Hispanic community. For the last 42 years, we've been serving that population. I also want to mention that we are part of the Illinois Latino agenda with Sylvia Puente. This question is related to human services. As you know, human services is an anchor of access to health care to Latino communities, Latino family members. In case of situations like domestic violence, people need intervention, prevention, and treatment. As you know, statistically has showed that 1 in every 15 children exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these children are witnesses to violence. The challenge today in environmental is not only affecting emotional, physically, and all social to these families and to families who suffer with domestic violence. The question to you is, as you know, in 2015, the level of funding was adequate in human services, adequate, I'll say. Through those years, and because I've been 35 years in the organization, I know the situation of funding. Now is about 40% of what it used to be in 2015. The question is that what you will do in order to restore at least that level of funding so human services are accessible to minority population.
Thank you for the question. It's critically important to recognize that we went 2 years and 6 days without a budget in this state, and that many of the services that people rely upon in communities were decimated. So rebuilding back to 2015 seems like a dream in a way, but it was even inadequate in 2015. I have a plan focused, by the way, on domestic violence prevention and addressing domestic violence survivors and their families. It's important that we have trauma-informed services that are available to people, training for women who are, who've had to leave their homes, shelters available to people, jobs. These are all things that we need to focus on. That's just in domestic violence. Because of the services that have been lost under Bruce Rauner, we have increasing amounts of violence on our streets. Because if you can't access mental health services, if you can't access a homeless shelter, basic services that many people need, people get desperate and they'll pick up a gun. And those are two available too.
Thank you. Stephen Monroy from MALDEF with a question about Latino representation in government.
Hello, my name is Stephen Monroy, and I'm an attorney with the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, known as MALDEF. MALDEF is an organization that litigates and advocates on issues of concern to the Latino community. We are members of the Illinois Latino Agenda. The Latino population in the state of Illinois is at 17%. Currently, the percentage of Latino employees in state government is only 6%. The current number of Spanish-speaking bilingual employees is even lower at 3%. These numbers are nowhere near what the Latino population for the state needs or adequate to meet the needs and diversity of the state's population. In addition, as reported in the 2017 report required by the Gubernatorial Boards and Commissions Act, most boards and commissions have little Latino representation. What will you do to increase the number of Latinos in state agencies and on boards and commissions?
We raise an excellent point. There are two things that we can do almost immediately. One is we need to make sure that we're helping to elect more Latino leaders across the state of Illinois. That's something that will help change the face of Illinois and all of the issues around who gets appointed to what positions if you have more Latino representation. So that's number one. But number two, in my administration, we'll have an administration that is reflective of the diversity of the state, and in particular, the growing importance of the Latino community in Illinois. We need to make sure that people are registering to vote. That's a big challenge. I also want to say this, that I'm not just talking about appointing people across state government to any positions. I believe that very highly qualified Latinos are available and willing to serve in the highest positions in an administration. I'm talking about running departments. And that ultimately is what I will be doing as governor.
Thank you. Now we have Instituto del Progreso Latino CEO, Karina Ayala Bermejo, with a question about fair tax.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Karina Ayala Bermejo. I'm the president and CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino. Instituto is dedicated and contributes to the fullest development of Latinos and their immigrant families and communities through leading with education, training, economic development, and of course, employment. We are also a member of the Illinois Latino Agenda. As you stated, it took 2 years and 6 days, so you know that the Illinois budget faces a structural deficit, meaning that the revenue that we're producing is just simply not enough to pay for all of the state's obligations to its children and families. Now, for Instituto, that has meant we had to reduce services to immigrant families during a time that's so critical for our country. Knowing that fewer families, especially in the immigrant population, are getting fewer services. And one of the reasons is that Illinois is only one out of 4 states across the country that has a constitutionally mandated flat tax rate. So can we talk a little bit about that? The question is, do you support putting a constitutional amendment in the 2018 ballot, one that would link a tax rate to one's ability to pay?
Thank you. I have put front and center in my campaign the issue of a fair tax, of a progressive income tax. Some of you may have seen that I have run commercials specifically about the progressive income tax. We have to change the regressive system that we have today. We need a system that says that we're going to protect middle-class taxpayers and those who are striving to get there, and ask people who are most able to pay to step up to the plate. We've got to fund education. We've got to fund, of course, a budget. Now, you had a governor who was unwilling to sit down and work out a balanced budget, and that's why we had the problems for 2 years and 6 days. There are 3 things that it takes to balance a budget. People think it's 2. People think usually it's revenues and expenditures. It's actually revenues, expenditures, and job growth. we need job growth in the state too, because that will allow us to increase revenue without increasing tax rates specifically. So collectively, we can do a lot. Now, I also want to legalize marijuana and tax it, and I think that'll bring $350 to $700 million to the state. That's just the beginning. We need to balance our budget, revenues, expenditures, and job creation. Thank you.
1 minute for closing statement.
Thank you very much. But you know, I know you all have a very important choice to make in 2018 about the next governor. I think you should ask yourself, what were the candidates doing before they were running for public office to make a difference across Illinois for working families? I mean, a big difference. And I think if you compare the candidates, my record of getting big things done for Illinois families compares very favorably. I mentioned to you that there are 230,000 kids that get school breakfast across the state now because of the work that I did, and thousands of kids getting quality preschool and quality childcare, and creating 7,000 jobs actually at 1871, which, by the way, houses the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which I'm proud of. And 500 or so companies that have come out of 1871, and thousands of jobs that I've created in my own business. We have to change the agenda for the state of Illinois. I have the ability to bring the experience of doing big things. We need big change in the state, and I can do that. I hope you'll join me in this movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Few sheets of paper. My apologies.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marco, question for you. Here's a microphone. Social services, we've been asking the same questions to all the candidates. I know you've been in this area for a long, long time. What do you think should be done?
So definitely, as you know, for the last 2 years, small organizations, social organizations have diminished, have disappeared. So only a few organizations in the Hispanic community primarily are in existence. We have to maintain at least that level of services in our communities. And definitely, I'm agreeing in terms that we should legalize marijuana. It's going to bring some revenue. That is one of the issues that will create a lot of revenue. About gambling, I'm not sure. As Mari talked about it, traditionally it's the poor people who go with the mentality that you're going to win, and they spend all the checks. And they're supposed to support their families, so I'm against that. But I think that a big revenue, creation of new jobs, industry, bring the people who are left Illinois, I think is crucial. And support social agencies. I think the anchor of our community is social agencies.
Absolutely, a lot of work to be done. Thank you, Marco. We are ready for Mr. Chris Kennedy. He's already here with us, taking a picture with Sylvia. Of course. A round of applause for Mr. Kennedy, everybody. How are you, sir? Welcome, good to see you again. Doing great, thank you. Here's your microphone. You are going to have 5 minutes for an opening statement, and then we're going to proceed with the questions. Your 5 minutes begin right now, so please go ahead.
Fantastic. Well, it's good to see you all here. Thank you very much. Thanks for sticking around. I think I'm the last act, so I'm sure it's been a long night for you. Thank you. So I'm Chris Kennedy. I'm one of Bobby and Ethel Kennedy's 11 children. And when I was in high school, college, my oldest brother started a not-for-profit oil company to try to bring oil to people who needed help heating their homes during the cold Massachusetts winters. I wanted to do the same sort of thing. President Reagan was president at the time when I was coming out of high school and college. He'd done something no American president ever done. He had created homelessness and hunger in the United States. And like millions of other people, I wanted to go into the fight against hunger. So 1986, I moved from Boston, Massachusetts to Decatur, Illinois to work for Archer Daniels Midland, the big grain processor, so I could learn how food is made and distributed in the United States. Eventually, I moved to Boston, or to Chicago, worked at the Board of Trade and the Mercantile Exchange, then ended up at the Merchandise Mart, which I was at for 25 years. The Mart was an incredible business. We filled with showrooms and we ran trade shows. Eventually we ran 90 trade shows a year in 30 different vertical markets. And I learned how the government can help or hurt the economy. I continued to volunteer in the anti-hunger world. And I worked at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. I became chairman of its board, and we doubled the size of the operation and started the first fresh fruit and vegetable program. My wife Sheila and I started Top Box Foods about 6 years ago, and we bring food to fresh fruits and groceries, all sorts of high quality food to food deserts all across northern Illinois. My wife largely runs it. She did more volume last week than the entire first year combined, so gives you a sense of her great capabilities as well. When I moved to Chicago in 1987, it was the coolest city in America. The coolest city in America. Around the United States, everybody looked up to Chicago. Other cities, other states were grappling with a demographic issue that they didn't know how to deal with. The country was headed to a place where it would become majority-minority, particularly in our cities. And that change scared people. People don't like change, but that particular change was particularly scary. And then Chicago goes ahead and elects Harold Washington mayor. Nobody knows what's going to happen. It turns out to be fantastic. He celebrates the things that we have in common, things like Chicago Fest, and he brings everybody in the city together. But then he invests in things like Gospel Fest in Grant Park. And if you're the mayor of Philly or LA or Washington, you say to Harold, how can you invest money, public money, in one people's culture? He says, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to celebrate every culture. I'm going to preserve what makes each neighborhood unique and make it the most attractive city in America. And he does that. And everybody looks up to it. And people from all over the Midwest come to Chicago. We raid Ohio and Indiana and Iowa and Wisconsin of their young people, and they come here. But that is not the city that we live in today. The city isn't getting bigger, it's getting smaller. People don't look up to us, we scare them. The city of Chicago is becoming smaller, and as it becomes smaller, it's becoming whiter. The same thing is occurring at the state. The state of Illinois is becoming smaller, and as it becomes smaller, it's becoming wealthier. We're pushing the poor out of Illinois. We're attacking 800 social service agencies, and now anybody with a sick child, a disabled brother or sister, elderly parents who need home health care, they left. And when the poor left the state, it made the rest of us look wealthier. That's what's going on in Chicago. That's what's going on in the state. People are poor in Illinois largely because they're undereducated. They're undereducated because we don't fund our schools properly. We don't fund our schools properly because we pay for our funding with local property taxes. We should pay for them at the state level with an income tax. The reason we don't do that is a handful of elected officials, including the leadership of the Democratic Party, have outside second jobs as property tax appeals lawyers. They're making money on this system. They're making money on a system that's damning the next generation of kids in our state to a life of economic servitude, driving the poor out of our state, separating our families, robbing our state of an economic future, and destroying our economy. That includes Mike Madigan, the largest property tax appeals lawyer in the city of Chicago and anywhere in the state. I think we need to end that. I think we should ban elected officials from having outside jobs that are adverse to the interests of the body they were elected to serve. Thank you all very much.
That's for you. Please have a seat. Absolutely. Thank you. There is a timer at the very end, so when you start answering the questions from students and members of the Illinois Latino Agenda, you're going to have a chance to keep track of your time. So we stay on schedule. The first question that we have for you tonight is from a student, Edgar Cruz. He has a question about higher education.
Good evening, Mr. Kennedy. My name is Edgar Cruz. I'm a student at Harold Washington, currently studying finance. The high cost of college places a burden on students who may be parents, homeless, or work part-time or full-time jobs, and questioning whether to attend school in Illinois. This school has many people from all walks of lives. I know I'm financially secured. However, I see other students that are struggling to pay for school. MAP grants used to fully cover the cost of attending public universities and community colleges. Will you restore the MAP grant funding so that all eligible students receive aid and the grants cover the full cost of attending school?
So I have a minute, right? I'm going to explain all of higher ed finance in 60 seconds. There's only one economic development tool that's ever worked to drive economic expansion in the United States. It's the power of higher education. It's what drives the economy in Silicon Valley, in Austin, Texas, in Research Triangle, North Carolina, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Boston, New York. We need to make that part of our economy as well. The only way to do that is to make university and college affordable. When we attack the affordability of college, we attack the economy and destroy the future of our state. We need to restore the MAP grants. We need a program in the state that makes college completion affordable to anyone. We've taken the money that we used to use for scholarships and we use it for merit-based scholarships, which sounds good, but really goes to only high-achieving students from wealthy backgrounds, and we need to return to need-based scholarship in Illinois.
Thank you, sir. That was good. Oscar Sanchez. Oscar Sanchez has a question about immigration.
My name is Oscar Sanchez, and I'm a student at Harold Washington College. I have the privilege to say that I was born and raised in the city of Chicago. However, my childhood friend Alan was born in Mexico City. In order to pursue our dreams, we both knew that obtaining an education would be critical. Rising tuition not only contributes to high student debt, but for my friend Alan, who does not have access to financial aid, it puts college out of reach. My friend attempted this challenge but had to drop out as he worked full-time in order to pay for part-time status. Higher education should be accessible to undocumented students so they can grow up, settle down, have children, and buy a home in Illinois. Will you champion legislation that allows undocumented students to access institutional and financial aid?
Absolutely. We want everybody who's living in our state to have a shot at the American dream, to be able to complete college and to become like a little mini economic engine all to themselves. We're never going to do that if we create an educational underclass where people can't participate in the opportunities that come if you complete college or university, if that's what you want to do. I don't think everybody needs to finish college in order to have a great life, but I think it can be an accelerant. It can help everyone. And when we isolate an entire group of people and say you'll never have the financial resources to finish college, to finish university, to make yourself a productive member of our society, we're destroying what is the integrity of our country, the very thing that makes us different than any nation anywhere in the world, which is unlimited freedom. And that freedom in this country comes from education, always has, always will, and we need to make it affordable to all.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Let's move on to Social and Human Services. We have Marco Jacome with the next question.
Mr. Kennedy, this question,
Please
you should
tell me you're not a Harold Washington student.
No. I left school a long time ago. I look young, but I'm old. So the question is related to human services. As you know, human services is the anchor access services primarily to minority communities and Latino population. I might say also, I'm a member of the Illinois Latino Agenda with Sylvia Puente, and she's creating an incredible leadership. So back to the question, as you know, human services is the anchor access to human services, social services to the Latino population. I don't have to say much in terms of issues of mental health and substance abuse because you're well known in terms of this area. 1 out of 10 people suffer for either substance abuse or mental health statistically, as you might know. The question is the issue that all these issues affect emotional and physically, spiritual, and environmental to individuals. Primarily for minorities who don't have accessibility to pay services. the problem that has existed is that in terms of funding, in 2015, the funding was adequate to provide social services and human services primarily to the minority community. Since then, about 40% of the budget has been reduced for accessibility to human services. The question for you will be, will you be considered at least to create a new funding level of what it was 2015, and or will you continue increasing so the accessibility to services for minority community who lacks insurance or probably going to lose all the insurance, at least have something to go about?
So I've spent my whole life in Illinois involved with social service agencies. The first group I got involved with when I moved here in '87 was El Valor. And as a founding board member of Cristo Rey High School, I served as the chairman of the board of the University of Illinois, and during that period, UIC became a Hispanic serving institution, which was critical to continue to recruit people who would work in social work and other areas to support the social service network in our state. The attack on that social service network is the attack of a brutalist, of a governor who wants to push the poor out of our state. The most efficient way to do that is to deny people access to the very things they need the most. Mental health is critical, and if people do not have access to mental health services in their communities, they will leave. It is the tip of the spear with gentrification. It's the most important thing that you can do to gentrify a city or a community or a state other than closing schools, and that's what's happening, and it's wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. We have Jose Lopez from LULAC and Illinois Hispanic State Employees Association with a question about Latino representation in government.
Hi, Mr. Kennedy. As you mentioned, I am the State Director of LULAC and the Vice President of the Illinois Association of Hispanic State Employees. We're members of the Latino Agenda with Sylvia Puente, and our mission is to increase the number of Latinos in state government and boards and commissions. But the problem is that right now, even though our population right now, the Latino population is 17%, we only have 6% of representation in state government. Of that, only 3% is persons who speak Spanish and are paid bilingual pay. So that's a very low percentage. The numbers nowhere match our Latino population in the state. And at the board and commission level, we're little or not even represented in most of the boards and commissions. So we are looking for help in that area. And the question is, what will you do to increase the number of Latinos in state agencies and boards and commissions?
So I love that question, and I think it goes to the heart of who we are as America. We're a multicultural democracy. The government is supposed to look like the multicultural democracy it's meant to represent. That's a special type of government. The government's not supposed to look like people's donors. It's not supposed to look like the economy. It's supposed to look like the people of the democracy, and it does not now. I think it's important to look at what's successful, what has worked in the past. I know in my own life, you look at the University of Illinois, when I was there, we had 3 female chancellors running the universities in Springfield, in Urbana, and here in Chicago. That wasn't accidental. We worked hard at it. We instituted a Rooney Rule. Rooney Rule was an idea that came out of the National Football League, where we determined that every candidate pool for a finalist job needed to have a diverse pool as part of it, and that helped drive those changes.
Thank you, sir. Karina Ayala Bermejo, CEO from Instituto del Progreso Latino, will ask you a question about fair tax.
Good evening, Mr. Kennedy. My name is Karina Ayala Bermejo. I'm the President and CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino. Instituto's mission is to ensure that every Latino immigrant and their families reach their fullest potential, and we do this through education, training, workforce development, and of course, employment. In addition, we are members of the Illinois Latino Agenda. As you know, Illinois' budget faces a structural deficit, which means that the projected revenue is simply not enough to afford all of the state's obligation to its children and families. Now, through the crisis that occurred, my organization, Instituto, has had to reduce services to immigrant families, so critical during this period of time. We know that we can uplift a family that uplifts a community and then changes and transforms. So we know that one of the reasons is that Illinois is one of only 4 states across the nation that constitutionally mandates a flat rate. The question is, do you support putting a constitutional amendment in the 2018 ballot to include or to allow a fair tax? And would it be one that links the tax rate to one's ability to pay?
Yes, let me begin by saying that I think your mission should be seen as the mission of our country, to allow everybody to reach the potential that they have. To do that, we need to fully fund the very services that allow people to migrate from preschool to grade school to high school to job training and to get the health care and retirement security that they need. We don't have that kind of money in Illinois. We need a progressive graduated income tax. I would support a change in our Constitution. I don't think that goes far enough, nor do I think we can do it fast enough. I think we should adopt a Massachusetts model. They have a requirement for a flat tax there, but they've introduced progressivity. They've created like a fake synthetic graduated income tax in Massachusetts without changing their constitution. I think that we can do that in 2019 and make it effective then.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Your closing statement? 1 minute.
Say this, I told you I'm one of Bobby and Ethel Kennedy's kids, but I'm also Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy's grandson. She played an incredible role in our lives. Before she was the mother of the president, she was the daughter of the first Irish Catholic American-born mayor of the city of Boston. She told us over and over again when we would be with her that you're growing up at a special time among privilege and power. Do not allow the people that you're with ever to treat anybody the way we were treated in this country. She grew up in Boston where there were signs above the restaurants and hotel worker entrances that said N-I-N-A, no Irish need apply. No Irish need apply because we will never hire you here. She made it clear to us that the mission of our life was to change this country and to never allow anything like that to exist again. And that's what I think I'm here to do. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for making it tonight, everybody. Remember that we need to be proactive, we need to register to vote, and we need to exercise the right on election day. Whether it is the primaries or the general election in November, you have to get out and vote. Very important. If you don't do it, none of this matters. Okay? Thank you.
And as the last word, thank you all for being here. And let's give a great round of applause to Enrique for doing a great job moderating.
And a big round of applause to everybody at the Latino Policy Forum for all the hard work putting this event together. Thank you.